Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you. I'm Sister Charlene Muhammad. Welcome to Liberated Sisters. Today, we have in studio with us DJ General Jeff. Our topic, what would Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. do? This topic comes from all of the information, all of the decimation, all of the poverty, the strife, the economic, political, educational problems that we are experiencing as a people in the United States of America. What would King do? I asked this question on Liberated Sisters, and I invite you to call in. The number is 323-293-3375. Call in because I asked this question in terms of it seems like we're still living this nightmare. You know, the world made Dr. Martin Luther King out to be a dreamer. He woke up and said his own dream was a nightmare. And so in studio, we have with us DJ General Jeff, Skid Row activist. I asked Brother General to come back to Liberated Sisters. He's a long-time participant here, a guest as well as co-host often, because Brother General not only, I believe, and he will certainly bring some fire and thunder and some passion to this discussion. But Brother General, I believe, is someone who is not only working for those on Skid Row and the homelessness issue to eradicate that, but on all the different levels that we struggle with as Black people. He knows the issues. He knows what's happening. He has some great solutions. And so this is Liberated Sisters. Please let your friends, let your family know that we're coming to you live right here from Morris Media Studios in the Great Leimert Park, Africa Town. I'm Sister Charlene Muhammad, and up next is the Justice Report. Today's Justice Report comes out of, give me a moment to collect myself, because it comes out of the pain and the struggle of families that are dealing with violence. Whether it's police violence that is taking the lives of our loved ones, or whether it is street violence, it's violence that we really must get a handle on. We don't have any more time to lose. And aren't we tired of seeing a mother, a father, a sibling, a community cry over the loss of a loved one? So Liberated Sisters sends its prayers and condolences out to the family of Miracle McGowan, 15 years old, shot and killed in Watts this last week, Thursday. I'm writing an op-ed about this, and the Justice Report is dedicated to Miracle. And the theme of it is no more miracles. And when I say no more miracles, it sounds like a flip, right? Who wouldn't want a miracle? In fact, again, being here at Morris Media Live in Leimert Park in this beautiful establishment is a small miracle for me. But listen, no more miracles, no more deaths, senseless deaths of 15-year-old girls, of 2-year-old babies, of grandmothers walking, or not even of those who are in the so-called street life. No more miracles. This family is grieving. This child is gone. We don't know all the details where they were headed and what they were doing, but certainly someone was waiting on them. She passed away. Her mother survived. And so no more miracles for Sister Charlene. I'm asking us to please stop the killing, stop the violence, because we don't know what this child possessed, what this young teenage Black girl was going to bring to the world. She was just she was just about to become a young woman in a few years. What was her goals? What did she want to accomplish? Who did she want to be in life? What cure might she have helped to find? What might she have created? Not just to help her people, but the world. No more miracles. Come on, brothers and sisters. Let's stop the violence. with that, I would also like to point us to this week's cover story of the Final Call newspaper, which I was blessed to write, shed light on what's happening with black girls across the country with suicide. Black girl suicide, finalcall.com. And if you have the digital, you can go to finalcalldigital.com or subscribe for just a few pennies on a dollar. But our cover story this week is talking about black girl suicide. And it features the voices of giants like Dr. Tamar Bryant Davis and Dr. Sandra Cox, both right here from Los Angeles, and more. But we're talking about what's ailing our black girls and how can we find a solution. Okay? Come on, no more miracles. I'm Sister Charlene Muhammad, and that is the Liberated Sisters Justice Report for today. Let's turn now to Brother DJ General. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, my sister.
Thank you for being with us, Brother General at Liberated Sisters. Again, I appreciate that.
Indeed. Thank you for having me. I'm the liberated brother that's down with my liberated sisters. I love saying that.
Yeah, he says it all the time, and he definitely is. You know, as you look, there's a lot on our horizon.
Woo,
and
yes.
So I put the topic out again. What would Dr. King do? And again, I asked that question because we lift him up every year, and rightfully so. We rightfully so, I believe, do that. But we turn right back around, and it almost appears as a mockery. Because even in interpersonal relationships, it could be just me and you, arm's length. We don't do the things apparently, collectively, certainly not individually, but collectively, to walk in the spirit of Dr. King, to live in the spirit of Dr. King. And the spirit I'm talking about is a spirit of love and peace and unity. So, Brother General, let's talk about it. Go ahead.
That's a very interesting question. What would King do? And, you know, the day after his birthday and his holiday, that's a very interesting question because as powerful as his movement was, he didn't have social media. So with social media, I mean, his numbers would have been through the roof. I mean, worldwide, we're talking about tens of millions of followers. Easy. The problem would be, one of the problems, there's a lot, positives and negatives. But, the problem would be everywhere he would go, it would be such a spectacle that, there's a lot of opportunities for the media to co-opt this message and focus on the spectacle rather than the cause. And he may, it'll just play out. And so, of course, back then in the 60s, civil rights movement, there were only, one or two like main voices, main leaders, him being one of them. Today's energy, like Black Lives Matter and, there's a lot of, across this nation, and around the world, there's a lot of powerful voices that would either be competitive with social media or at least, be strong enough to challenge any and everything that he puts forth. So, I mean, while, he would have big numbers and a lot of support, his opposition would be strong as well. And we're just talking about within, Black America. We're not even talking about white America. I mean, know what that energy would be over there. And so it would be interesting. He would have to be real cautious because everything he said could be the tipping point of this day and age in 2018. Like he could possibly set off a race war, because you get like back then there were a lot more passive blacks in the 50s and 60s. And now in 2017, 2018, all these police killings of unarmed brothers and sisters. Oh, black, we one press conference away from it, one incident for, I have a dream. And there it is. Get him.
But I think
go. And then, it'd be set off and we got dreams too. And it could be turned up and it could get ugly real quick.
Let's talk about the passivity a little bit. Because I still sense some of that. Otherwise, we would kind of be across a little hump. But also acknowledging that we are doing things as a people. But I think we could pick up our pace.
And that's the problem where I have with, okay, it's a black, Dr. Luther King having, all respect given. Brother got a holiday, statue in Washington, D.C. and all that. All right, that's cool. Black brother did that. But at the end of the day, it seems like white America allowed that to happen. So, I got a problem with, when you talk about his legacy, exactly what was his legacy? Me personally, now that I'm a conscious activist. You know, it's different when I was a little boy growing up and you hear the speeches, powerful speaker, wonderful orator, and all of that. But now, as a Skid Row community activist for 11 years, I look to him for inspiration, and it's like, wait a minute, he kind of was, his dream was selling our whole community short, because he was settling for us to be glorified second-class citizens. I have a problem with that. Everything about what he was, speaking out for was to be, comfortable within white America while being connected to white America's bosom. And we know all the way back, maybe he didn't know it then, but all the way here we are 40 years later, 50 years later, it's like that's not a good place for us to be in our best interest as a community.
You mean in terms, we had that conversation, you mean in terms of the integration aspect?
I mean, that as well. I mean, there's a lot of different aspects. The fact that, I look at it like this. If it was about equality is what he was saying he was pushing for, then, the Constitution should have been redone. White America makes up 50% of the laws. Black America makes up 50% of the laws. And let's not, we talking about equality. If true equality, Supreme Court, we have more of a say so in how this is going. So it's like, he didn't push for that. At least, I mean, there's no history anywhere that, there was a dossier, a manifesto, a white paper that, anywhere historically that he even put that on the table. That's a bargaining chip. Like, let's go for the gusto. Don't just settle for the low hanging fruit. Like, if you're going to speak out on black issues, push the line on them. That's what we doing here in 2018. We pushing the line. You got a lot of activists out there that's not playing. And so with that platform, and it's like, man, you out here asking for handouts, a better quality, bigger crumbs. Like, yeah, no, we not feeling that in this day and age.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you coming on that. Call in. Join this dialogue, everybody. The number is 323-293-3375. The number is posted on the screen. Call in and weigh in on the dialogue. What I hear is I receive a difference in time periods when you acknowledge that at the beginning.
Yes.
But Dr. King's legacy is huge. It's great. One of the things is that while activists today are being tried, definitely, and in what we're working with and what those street soldiers like Black Lives Matter and the different groups that are with them and those that have been on the ground before them, but perhaps maybe not in the way that they are really strong and confronting it in different ways. The reality is that Dr. King, when we say gave his life, I don't say he gave his life. He was murdered, right? He went all the way. Like, that's the ultimate sacrifice. So clearly we haven't yet. And I'm not saying that necessarily is the thing, but we haven't yet done that clearly. But he went all the way. In the time that Dr. King was living in and in the face of the racism, I don't think it's subsided, but it's just a different way that it comes at us. But his legacy is intact. Now, what people do with it are how it's misused, how it's misappropriated, how it's misdistributed. For instance, we all, well, I don't want to say we all, it's an absolute, but many of us, myself included, up until I met a man named Farrakhan who introduced me to the latest speeches, grown woman. The latest speeches, the last ones of his life of Dr. King, I perceived that he was wrapped up and caught in the dream as well, but understood that his life was snatched up because he had awakened, as Dr. King himself says, and moved away from integration, but started talking about, hey, look, I believe I'm integrating my people into a burning house, and started talking about boycott. And started talking about revolutionary and very actionary things, saying, what's the bread, Jesse? What is the milk? Boycott those things. I think it was one of the colas. Boycott those things. If you're not going to give us justice, then we're going to call for economic justice. And that also, Minister Farrakhan lifted that for the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March 10-10-15, justice or else. And you can go to NOI.org or finalcall.com for more of that. But justice or else. That's when many people started, and many youth started saying, oh my God, because people were shunning King. Not everyone, but to a degree, there was a disconnect. between Dr. King and many of the youth and many people. And a lot of that was closed with the 20th anniversary. But go ahead, Brother General.
No, I just, that's very, very powerful about what you're saying, because, a lot of people really don't know about, the latest speeches of Brother Dr. Martin Luther King. And so, now focusing on that point of his life and his efforts, that's very, very intriguing to, folks like me, because, him being a reverend, him being a pastor, him being a minister, him being, connected to the church, if coming back today to today's times, it'd be interesting to see what type of an influence, if he was still alive, what type of influence he would have on the current black pastors, across America. Because there's a lot of foul stuff going on in these churches nowadays, specifically these black churches. And I think that with him being president, obviously that he would be the point person that we could, like, if something's going on in the black churches, we like, Dr. King, what you gonna do with your people? Them your boys, them your folks. People, go holler at your folks. The black pastors ain't doing nothing. They need to be out there. And he would have, the SCLC. Yeah. I mean, that would be a more powerful entity. And it would be very, very interesting to see, if what he would have to say about the black pastors now and the black churches. Now, that would be where I think he would be most effective in terms of wherever it is that he would be trying to put forth in today's times.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think, to Brother General's point, the black church, I think all of us in general would be much stronger because of that Dr. King and where he was headed, which was why he was taken. There was no way. I mean, look, he met with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But Dr. King was going in a direction that was no longer, the government wasn't able to handle that anymore. And so I think that Dr. King would have been on the front line with Black Lives Matter or vice versa. Right. They might have been on the front lines with Dr. King. I know for sure that he'd be walking with Brother Farrakhan. Brother Farrakhan would be walking with him. I'm saying that to say that the unity that we talk about and the unity that we do work toward, we might be a little bit closer toward it. We might be a little bit closer toward it. But the number is 323-293-3375 to call and join the discussion. One thing certainly Dr. King would still be right at, I believe, is this issue of poverty.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the fact that we're here at 2018 still with it, and it's not getting better. It's getting worse. Whole families, mothers, women and children increasing, right? You know the numbers. Absolutely. Let us have the plight of our people. Let's start with Skid Row and just deal with it on a national basis.
Right. So homelessness, thank you for that. So, homelessness in Skid Row. Skid Row is commonly known as the homeless capital of America.
Yeah.
And in 2017, the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, LASA, their homeless count, they do it every year now, and I let the effort. They used to count every other year when first started in 2005. Yeah. And my main mantra was, like, my attack point was, so what is it? Homeless people only matter every other year. Yeah. And that drove some points home. And so as of last year, they started counting every year. So last year in Skid Row, when they finally released their numbers, they said that Skid Row is 62% African American. And so a lot of people don't understand, like, when we talk about, gentrification and we got to hold on to our black communities, it's like, hello, don't forget about Skid Row. It's 62% black, right? But at the same time,
but it's not funny.
But at the same time, when you attach it and put a true lens on it and realize that it's not really a viable black community. It's a black community that's suffering extreme poverty and homelessness. And, homelessness is created, is by design. And so while you see a whole bunch of black folks, stuck on the street, sleeping on sidewalks and in tents, it's a whole lot of nonprofit organizations led by, majority white America that are getting paid, significant amounts of money. All the CEOs and executive directors are getting six-figure salaries as high as $200,000 and $300,000. And, while our people are on the streets and for the money that's supposed to funding that's coming from Washington, D.C., that's supposed to be helping our brothers and sisters. And, all the homeless folks, when I say brothers and sisters in that aspect. Yeah. And so, what's really going on, and I call them to their face. Outspoken community activist for 11 years in Skid Row. They're poverty pimps. I don't have a problem telling you you're poverty pimps. You know what you're doing. You getting that money. You getting paid, and you just and then it's cold blooded when I have some of these folks respect because you can't. When you bring truth, and that's why I respect my Honorable Minister Farrakhan. When you bring that truth, they can spread lies or whatever, but the truth is always going to stand strong, or especially over the test of time. And so I've had over the years, a lot of these folks on the nonprofit side, whisper in my ear offline, off the record, you're right about what you're saying. I can't say it publicly, but and then they talk about donations. They say a lot of people. If they see Skid Row's all cleaned up and people are doing well, doing better, people would donate less. So they said, but if the streets is looking deplorable, it's trash everywhere and it's filth and debris and the people are looking toe up and worn down and run down and wore over and just all the community in disarray, they donate more. They could even ask for more. So it's almost like the scene of a Hollywood set.
Wow.
When we say Skid Row in downtown Los Angeles is the homeless capital of America, it's only a few blocks away from the entertainment capital of America in Hollywood, and so just the extreme wealth and extreme poverty so close together. But yeah, you got to look at Skid Row for what it really is, and that's why a lot of people feel like my voice is dangerous, is because I'm pushing the truth out there. It's all a money game. They're poverty pimping. So when my mantra now in 2018 is the state of homelessness is alive and well. The state of ending homelessness is dead on arrival. And that's a lot of people can't understand that. Everybody's got all this false hope that mission statements on these nonprofits saying we're here to end homelessness. No, that's just a marketing scam so y'all can get paid. And I don't have a problem telling them to their face.
This is Liberated Sisters. I'm Sister Charlene Muhammad, my guest, DJ General Jeff. We're talking about what would King do. Brother General is talking about his experience as an activist and advocate for the homeless on Skid Row. And, I agree with what you're saying about the poverty pimping. While there may be a handful that are doing great things, and I've covered you all, by and large, what does that mean? We have a call, Brother General. Let's take a call.
Hey, caller.
Caller, you say what? Remember Oprah used to say that? Welcome, caller, you say what? Welcome to Liberated Sisters. You're on.
Hello?
Caller, you're on. Okay, so that call back. Call back.
Got caught up.
I was all excited. You were
so
going to
much
be
conversation.
Our first call.
So much conversation. He had too many questions. Couldn't formulate. Call back, brother or sister. Don't worry about it. We're here for you.
You know where that caller is at, that 110 pocket before you get in that express lane. Man. It shuts me down every time. Right. But let's continue, talking about like the 3-on-3 basketball and the different leagues and the concert. I love that post you put up with you, Brother Chuck, Brother Flav, Public Enemy, the different things. My question is, it seems like people need Skid Row to exist for them. Pretty much what you're saying. It's like Skid Row feeds millions, but it doesn't feed itself.
Well, that's again
meaning those who are getting money, who are getting grants. They'll give some of the change, or like you said, the poor food. Some of the poor quality food. So I always say Skid Row feeds many, but it doesn't feed itself or the many doesn't feed it.
Well, Skid Row does feed itself because, again, they just like, this is a capitalist society. Mm-hmm. So whoever, got the stranglehold in control, that's who eats. And then it's trickle down economics, and the same thing in Washington D.C. is the same thing in Skid Row and nonprofit and homelessness, and then it trickles down, and so it's just like a drizzle. You're talking about thunderstorm, it's a drizzle. Mm-hmm. The raindrops are going to evaporate before it hits the bottom. Mm. Hits the ground. And so that's the same thing with trickle-down economics. The water, it's just a drizzle. It's not a storm. And so in that regard, we can't really get the solutions that we need, And so I'm, on the boots on the ground. A lot of other folks, brothers and sisters on boots on the ground. But what a lot of people don't understand is that homelessness is, an industry. It's not just you got folks here, folks there. It's an industry. And so that, just let me give my simplistic metaphor, an example, is that for every million people that are reduced to a state of homelessness, that automatically creates 1 million jobs as caretakers to take care of them. right? And so now when the last presidential administration, President Obama said, his main mantra, we got to grow the middle class. And so what that means all the way down here on the bottom of life's totem pole in Skid Row is that, so if he grows homelessness from 1 million to 2 million, now he can justify growing the jobs from 1 million to 2 million of the caretakers to take care of us. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't mean there's impossible with the structure that's in place and the solutions that they put on the table. It's impossible to end homelessness because you're going to put millions of people out of a job that take care of them. So if they truly want to have a conversation about ending homelessness, you would have to do this. You would have to create a whole nother industry to transfer the caretakers and those folks with those skill sets out of the homeless sector into whatever that new sector is at the same time while you're housing and ending homelessness over here. If you're not talking about that three-pronged solution, you're full of crap and you're not talking, you're poverty pimping and you don't really know what you're talking about as far as really ending homelessness. And I don't have a problem telling anybody to their face.
And clearly he doesn't, as you can hear it now. We have a guest on the line. I think this is our supporter for today, but call in 323-293-3375. If you get a busy signal, keep calling back. You're on.
Hello.
Hello. My name is Marie Vernon. I'm from the California Room and Board Advisory Coalition, and I'd like to echo the sentiments of the gentleman, what he just said. Right now, the biggest challenge that we're facing is it's homelessness, and it's shelter, and then it's the room and board. Now, room and board are places that are charging no more than maybe $900 for people. And how many people really that are homeless have $900? So we have caregivers who have no money. They're really an impoverished sector because they're left to care for their family members, seniors and adults, and not getting paid anything for it. So the government really is just taking advantage there. They're not giving them any subsidies to help with the housing shortage, apartments. If a homeless person comes off the street, you don't have any application. You don't have a credit check that you can provide and, live scan and all this other stuff. So that's BS in essence. So for the California Room and Board Advisory Coalition, we're at least trying to help people so that the county of L.A. stops harassing them for opening up their garage and converting it into something that's livable for a person or a family to come to so they have an address. We try to help these unlicensed homes because, see, the state of California gets money for licensing a facility, and then they harass them and fine them every 5 minutes for something as trivial as water temperature and lighting.
Wow.
It's just a system here, and it's just designed to keep it. I won't say that they're doing it deliberately, but they're doing it ignorant of the people that it's impacting. Health issues, diabetes, and high blood pressure. All those challenges come into focus when you have that worry that you can't go to work because mom with dementia or dad with his blood pressure and diabetes is at home alone, not able to check the sugar, and they come home and they're sick, and it loads the hospitals up. There's solutions. It is solvable. Our homeless situation is solvable, and that is helping people. That is helping people, giving them subsidies or giving them income, not making the barriers. They say that there's talk about the housing, low-income housing. Well, there's just a 20% set aside. So these big corporations get a whole building. They get billions and millions of dollars to put a building and just set 20%. So 20 units out of 100 are going to be set aside for people who are already on a waiting list of years and years.
Mm-hmm. And they gripe about that. There's a gripe about that. I thank you for calling. And actually,
thank you.
Well, she's not done because what Brother General talked about, I don't know, it was like a perfect segue into this segment, which is I want to just thank you, Marie Vernon and the Advisory Coalition. They are generous supporters of Liberated Sisters, and today's show comes to you with the generous support of Marie Vernon and her coalition. So tell us some more about what you do and how people can reach out to you.
The coalition, the toll-free number is 844-657-4748. And our main goal is to advocate and educate people who want to open up a room in their house to shelter and provide housing for someone who is just getting back on their feet, we really, really need, in Los Angeles County, we need operators of those homes. We need you to come out of the shadows. You are a dignified and necessary part of this solution, this housing shortage that we have. So our agency, we work with 4 different entities in the state of California, and we've helped one gentleman in particular over the last 90 days to avoid $20,000 in fines for renting what the state calls, quote unquote, an illegal unit. And then at the same time, we helped him to avoid having to pay fines and even attorney's fees. So we will help you if you're in any kind of trouble. We do not judge, and we go back over the events that led to you getting into this realm of penalties and harassment by building and safety and rent stabilization orders and things of that nature. So we'd like for you to become a member of the coalition, and it is free. Your home, once there is a physical inspection of your property and we tell you the things that you should and should not be doing, and you adhere to that, on our website, which is crbac.com or .org, you can go there, and there's helpful information that you can just download just to operate on your own. But there is strength in numbers. There's strength in numbers. And this is a newly formed coalition, California Room and Board Advisory. We advise the room and board operators. We are here for the tenants and the renters that you have, but ultimately, we're here to save your home and to look out for you.
Wow. crbac.com. Marie Vernon, the California Room and Board Advisory Coalition. Thank you so much for supporting Liberated Sisters and, more importantly, for helping people in need. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Peace and blessings. Brother General?
Wow. There's so much to follow up on that.
Yeah.
That's heavy. That's a lot of information, but that's one of the good ones. Mm-hmm. The problem in Skid Row, and I'm Skid Row specific, born and raised in South Central Los Angeles, but, so Los Angeles is my home, and it could be the greatest city in all the world. Mm-hmm. And, it's so much, economics, economic wealth here in the state of California. And then you got so much extreme poverty, not only poverty, but extreme poverty. And so just last month, United Nations came to Skid Row. They sent a special rapporteur on extreme poverty and had a town hall meeting inside the offices of Los Angeles Community Action Network, also known as LA-CAN.
Yes, shout out to Pete White and everyone.
Indeed. And so, that's huge. They've been pulling at United Nations for many, many years. Mm-hmm. And so the United Nations finally came on through, and so they got a new the real report final report will be coming out June of this year, but they came out with preliminary findings after doing like a 4 or 5 city tour across America. And like I said, Skid Row was one of the town hall meetings. And so over 40 organizations, and it was great that LA-CAN, the way they did that, because they could have just hogged the mic up for themselves and pushed their own reports. They got enough information and material, and, to do it all this. But they know they passed the mic, they opened the doors, and they spread love. Yeah. A whole bunch of organizations. They allowed 40 organizations to come, and mine being one of them, and 40 organizations to come in and join in in speaking to Philip Alston. As a special rapporteur on extreme poverty for the United Nations. And, that's huge, and so that's when I talk about going back to, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Like, like nowadays we got a whole bunch of, 40 organizations, and like everybody brought the heat. Yeah. Everybody brought the heat, and we're talking about black, brown, white, Asian, it was a full spectrum, a universal spectrum with different perspectives. We talking about Skid Row residents, folks in Skid Row, folks outside. It's just, it's United Nations. Like, so we don't get that many opportunities. And so come one, come all. People was lined. It was standing room only crowd. The videos out there, someone contact LA-CAN, and they're coming back, this month. It's the, special rapporteur. The whole United Nations sending a different, investigators, the special rapporteur on housing And so this is going to be a whole, this is going to be even deeper. So we talk about affordable housing, low-income housing, gentrification, homelessness. I mean, anything that all aspects of housing, rent stabilization. I mean, so those organizations a lot. Of course, Damien's going to be there. Yeah. So he's already on the list, and it's a whole bunch of.
I said he's going to give it to him.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the whole thing.
He probably orchestrated it.
And so that's the thing, the voice of the people is resonating around the world thanks to social media. Yeah. So, whereas back in the days, we only could look to like one man as a Dr. King or, one leader. Now it's like, no, we have, there's enough room for everybody. As long as what you're saying resonates and the people feel that, and then, can connect with you on the website, social media, whether it's, whatever it is, internet links and all of that. I'm not trying to promote any companies. That's why I kind of stuttered right there. I don't want to give up. So I call it internet search. I don't call it the G word and promoting companies. But, so there's a wealth of information and a wealth of an internet out there. And so it's like, I got followers from India and, like it's poor populations all over the world that's paying attention to what's going on right here in Skid Row. And so it's very, very interesting how, now the nonprofits who in Skid Row who have had a stranglehold on our community since, I call it the modern day Skid Row, the mid 70s.
Wow.
That's where, Skid Row has existed for over 100 of years for those that don't know. But the modern day Skid Row started like in the mid 70s. Everybody always says, oh, that was when Ronald Reagan shut down the state-run mental health facilities and everybody. And so then the politicians created this containment zone policy to say we want, because the well-to-do folks in Beverly Hills and the West Side and the big money folks in town said we don't want, quote unquote, them, running all wild and rampant our communities where our kids and families. And so then they created the Skid Row containment zone policy. That's a policy initiative. Government
That's
initiative.
A law.
Right. And they, so basically, so they created Skid Row and they said, well, if you can do whatever you want to do, within these 50 blocks, but if you go outside and go across Main Street and go to the other side, the police are going to come here. And so the police are the first line of defense. And the police, that was in the mid 70s, like 1973, 74, 75, when that process was going on. Here we are in 2018, and the LAPD still polices our community the same way with the Skid Row containment zone philosophies.
How did we let that happen? Okay, they did that. Right. How did we let that happen?
Well, you got to look at it like when they initiate that, it was the mid 70s. And so you got to look back that right after the 60s when we lost, Dr. King, Brother Malcolm, we lost our black leadership. And so as a community, we were in disarray. And then in the 70s started, and then it was like it went from the civil rights movement to, the women's rights. And it went away from the black issues and the definition of minority changed. And then in the 70s, it was that. And then, of course, the 80s with the crack epidemic, we know, the government and its cronies, initiated and did all that. And so, it was a whole different energy. And so since the 80s, that's when Skid Row became a majority African-American population. Yeah. And that's when the nonprofits realized, hey, we can eat really good off of this. And they've been eating, so they got a strong 30-year run. And so now we're like, and so the whole thing is, I'm not saying like 100% of all nonprofits are 100% bad. I mean, they'll do enough because they got to get the photo ops. They got to, that's the whole sales pitch. They got you believing that's like a used car dealership. This is. I was about to give a free commercial, but anyway, and so he'll sell a car.
He's on this promo thing.
And we ain't giving him no free commercials, and so just like, used car salesmen, have all this wonderful commercial that, is running all hours of the night and everybody's hooked on the little jingle. And then all of a sudden they get to the lot and you see in the commercial that one beautiful car that somebody sold and drove. Oh, it's great. I love it. But every other car is like, trash and there's a limit. Yeah. And so it's the same kind of concept with, it's like used car poverty pimping going on in Skid Row. And so, they'll, when I first started my community activism, they were like, there was this one specific a nonprofit. I won't say any names. I want to act like I'm hating on them and nothing like that. But they had a graduate. Every year they have a program. People sign up, and they had 100 people in the program. And then at the end of the program, it was graduation. And here's the 15 people that graduated. Give them a hand. It was like I'm up there clapping. I'm way in the back, and they're like, wait a minute, 15 graduated out of 100 people. And I'm like, well, what happened to the other 85 people?
Yeah, that's a good question.
And then you know, mathematics automatically kick in my mind is like, wait a minute, that's a 15% success rate, and everybody's around here cheering loud. 15% success rate. Like the bar is set so low in Skid Row, but then of course they film in, these 15 people, and they celebrating these 15 people, and they get passing awards, and the program getting more funding at a 15% success rate. That's 85% failure rate. You need to go out of business.
Did they talk about I know you kind of went to them and asked. First of all, I'm with them to celebrate those that completed, and you are too, right? But what about that 85? Where'd they go?
Oh, we don't know.
Who's accountable?
Right, there is no accountability. It's just like the Skid Row landlords. And, they on their mission statement, we house the homeless. Yeah, but y'all evict the homeless too. They got all this data and statistics of how many people they house. How many homeless people have y'all evicted? Mm-hmm. If somebody had a mental illness, they knew they had a mental illness when they signed them up and gave them housing in a mental illness building. Mm-hmm. But then, because they were running around the hallways, whatever they was doing, they couldn't stabilize them. Oh, we got to kick you out because, you too wild. You kicking them out because they had a mental illness. But this is a mental illness building, and that you knew they had a mental illness before you moved them in there. So now all of a sudden it's a problem, but they continue to get funded. And some of these types of funding cycles that come out of Washington, D.C., out of HUD, they get paid for 12 months. So even if that person stays there for 30 days and they get kicked out, they still got 11 more months of free money.
And they don't.
And then they can rent somebody. I mean, this is this poverty pimping going on.
That's a horrible game, Brother Jim. That's not right. This is not okay.
And then they still writing on paper like they be still caring for this, bro. The Washington D.C. officials, they don't know where Brother Homeless Joe is. He got evicted. They don't know because they still writing paperwork, shooting it in like he's there.
He's out.
And then they getting off to another paper. So whatever on paper, okay, the numbers look okay. Here's your check, bam, and they're like off to the next thing. And so the reason why that is, and Washington D.C. and this is where another moment where Dr. King could have had more input, and more influence on as opposed to just the regular activists, because we're 3,000 miles away from Washington D.C. And so the thing is HUD, the Department of Housing and of Urban Development, Department of Housing and Urban Development. Sorry, get it right, HUD. Mm-hmm. And so they give out all this funding across the nation. And the thing is they have stipulations, like they have strings attached. This is the type of funding, but it has to be this, it has to be that. And so a lot of nonprofits are, writing up the paperwork and just submitting it. And so, Washington, D.C. there's no oversight, there's no accountability. There's no transparent. It's just whatever they write on paper. And so that's where Dr. King could have been going, because he was in the White House in the 60s. Surely he still would have had well, I don't know about the current president, but he probably was slammed on
like
to shut all that
era.
down. But, right, well, what I'm just saying as far as access, I'm pretty sure he, based on his, I would like to think Dr. King would have more access than Omarosa. But, my whole thing is that he would have been able to speak to a lot of the inequalities that are going on within the parameters and logistics and the paperwork and the stipulations in terms of what drives homelessness and homeless funding.
Man, I see what you're saying. I got a question, but I want to mention something on that. Dr. King dealt with the enemy we're dealing with today is the enemy. They're the children of the enemy Dr. King dealt with then. They did not love Dr. King. So he might have been in there, just like our sister Omarosa might have been in there. They don't love us. They don't like us. They want us to die. Go away, crawl under a rock and die. And the policies and the laws are there. Dr. King worked and walked and moved in a time where it was okay to shoot people outright or sick dogs on women and children and men. Okay, that's here. And
don't forget about lynching and all, burning crosses and
that's
the water hoses and that whole intimidated.
Occurring. Yes,
yeah, absolutely.
So that's one of my things when I think about the sacrifices of Dr. King and his family, Miss Coretta and the children, but. My question about that landlord piece is this. I think that there's a property factor, one, and this is where, I don't know this, but there's a property factor as a landlord, and then there should be a specialty. So are the Skid Row landlords just general landlords? There's not any kind of mandates in the policies or the contracts that
Absolutely.
I mean, because they're renting to people who have mental challenges, and so it's not just going down to Long Beach or going next door and renting a place. If you're servicing this community, because you're obviously there, are there any set-asides or any benefits or tax write-off benefits that they receive for being in that community? Or it's just the everyday run-of-the-mill real estate contract principle? But are any set-aside where the landlords or management company have to have certain types of qualities and training to deal with people? And I know I could be talking apples and oranges about business
Right.
and service,
Right.
but I'm just curious.
See, a lot of people don't understand about the nonprofit hustle. I call it the nonprofit hustle.
It's on them.
It's a business. And I'm definitely on them,
Yeah.
because
I'm not mad.
I'm trying to
And
share. I'm just speaking the truth.
I'm with it.
I've offered, not
Time
only
is
law
up.
enforcement agencies, nonprofit entities, politicians. I've offered them, let's have a national debate. Let's have a debate, public debate. Bring your evidence, your proof, and your witnesses. I'll bring my evidence, proof, and my witnesses. Let's film it. Let's put it on YouTube. We live stream, whatever we want to do, and let's run at it. And we can have that debate. And not to 11 years, no one has ever challenged me on stuff because they know they can't not knock down the truth.
Mm-hmm.
They can run their little marketing schemes or what have you. But when it comes to nonprofit hustle being a business, the thing is just like when George W. Bush deregulated industries. There's no oversight. When there's no oversight, no transparency, no accountability, you can pretty much do whatever the heck you want to do. And that's where it is with homelessness. And so the reason why, so just as far as the landlords, because you threw a whole lot at me, but I'm trying to speak to you.
But I know you can handle it.
But hold on, of course. So as far as the landlords, there is, for one, you have to have an income in order to get some type of housing. Let's get that straight. So if you don't have no income, that's why a lot of people's on the sidewalks if you're truly homeless. But if you get some kind of, whether it's general relief, SSI, military disability, some type of check or something, then you pay a third of your income. Mm-hmm. And then the rest is government subsidized from Washington, D.C. And so, but through those subsidies, there's strings attached. But now with there being so loose and no accountability, Washington, D.C.'s not, they don't care whatever you write it on paper. As long as it look good on paper, okay, they're going to rubber stamp that and throw that in the file, and here's your check. Mm-hmm. And, it's, we're trying to get people housed, but they're trying to keep people paid and keep people having jobs and people providing for their families also. Mm-hmm. So, you got white America over here and black America over here. It's like, which is the important entity now? Because, you can't have homelessness. You can't end homelessness because now you're going to create homelessness in white America with all the people that have these, jobs and providing for their families. So white America is not going to do that. So they're going to continue just blindly funding that. And so now let's speak about, numbers right quick, because, when you talk about Washington, D.C., let's say there's 400 million people living in America right now. And they say there's a little less than 1 million people that are homeless, about 900,000 or so. And so the problem is that 900,000 is that number is, and we don't even know if that's the true numbers, first of all. But just if we take their numbers at face value, folks, we're just taking the numbers at face value, whatever they put on the table. But based on the number that they put on the table, that's less than 1%. Because, if you have 400 million, 10% is 40 million, 1% would be 4 million, and 900,000 is less than 1%. So less than 1% in Washington, D.C. in order to really move significant funding to end, to address an issue, they come up with initiatives and policies like, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, they put forth initiatives and policies that address the majority of Americans or a significant amount. So because, when we talk about homelessness and while it's, widespread and it's, exploding rapidly, and it's out of control here in Los Angeles County, it doesn't move the needle in Washington, D.C. in terms of overall numbers because it's less than 1% of the American population. So they can't put forth, $1 billion or $1 trillion to just, outright. Well, they've said they've done that. President Obama in 2008 created the Opening Doors Project with $6.4 billion. And he said he vowed to end homelessness And we don't know where that was $6.5 billion that just vanished in thin air. Because homelessness is still worse. And, then you got you have local nonprofits, like those in Skid Row. You have the national nonprofits like United Ways and those folks. Then you got the international nonprofits like the Red Cross and all those folks. Somebody said, a couple of months ago, I haven't fact checked it, but I'm going to just throw it out there. Wow. They said the CEO of the Red Cross makes $800,000 a year. It's like, doing what? What does the Red Cross do with 800,000? Right. And so again, the poverty pimping is not just limited to Skid Row. The nonprofit hustle is worldwide. It's international. It's a lot of money being made, and all it is even like with college kids. I remember hearing that back in the 80s and 90s, like, oh, just get your degree and start a nonprofit. You can write a grant. There's money all over the world. All these Fortune 500 companies, they have give back components. They have grant, funding programs, and all you have to do is come up with a cause. I want to save all the light brown skinned cockroaches on, in the eastern part of America. And there's funding for it somewhere. I don't know. It's funding all. And in Skid Row, we qualify for every type of funding known to man. It's 50 city blocks, but, in 2014, LAPD at a town hall meeting in Skid Row said there was over 107 nonprofits in Skid Row. So that's more than 2-to-1 ratio per block in Skid Row. So they all writing grants, getting paid, getting hundreds of millions to billions of dollars per year. And if nobody knows, there's no accountability and oversight, especially coming from Washington, D.C. or in Sacramento here in the state of California, then it's like everybody's eating. Well, all of them are eating.
But our people are not. It's really horrible.
We are stuck on the streets.
What are some things, give us some things people can do. There's somebody inspired that wants to do something. Let's talk about maybe changing the way that we go down and how we feed if we're bringing food. You talked about that one time.
Hold on. I know we're running short on time, and we still got a whole bunch of topics.
You have 9 minutes.
Short on time. I still got 2 hours. I still got 2 hours worth of conversation and information.
7 minutes.
But I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on the show. Liberated sisters, don't forget to call in. But
I think they're not.
And so the whole thing is that
they're at work. They're at work. The callers are at work. Go ahead.
When you talk about solutions, it's just like, say, like a chef, a top chef. Say like somebody that's never cooked a meal in their life, saying, "Hey," they walk in the kitchen, say, "Hey, I want to help," and then he just start grabbing pots and pans and do it. Hold on. Do you know how to cook?
Well, they can't do that.
If you don't know how to cook, go learn how to cook first, and then we can. It's like if you don't. But if you don't understand homelessness specifically in Skid Row, then you need to go through Skid Row orientation first, and that's what there's a bunch of us in Skid Row. Well, there you go. In Skid Row, we're creating a Skid Row orientation before you just come running up in here. Because I've seen people when I first get there, people drive up wanting to help, jump out their cars, open up the trunk, throw a whole bunch of clothes on the sidewalk, jump back in their car and drive off. And
they just getting rid of stuff.
What? Hold on. That's so disrespectful. But in their minds, we're helping. Yeah. Or people, and you got people's grandmothers shopping on the ground. Like, that's not, if the streets are dirty and tainted, you just threw the clothes on the tainted ground. That's disrespectful. And then once the community picks through that, who's responsible for the unwanted clothes that you didn't want, that we don't want them?
Right.
Now, we're responsible for picking up after you?
Right. Give me a second.
But then the media's going to come down and look at us and portray like we're keeping this dirt and filth going.
Yeah, give me a second. So, we know what the mainstream media does. It's going to always play us in a negative light unless it's something that can benefit them. But helpful ways, as you continue, that's one. If you want to donate something to Skid Row, and we would like that you do that, contact Brother General Jeff. He'll give you the information. Go down to LA Can. They're getting an orientation program together. Find out how to do that. If you're dumping clothes down there, let's cease and desist, right? Because the people are not animals, right? They deserve some respect. Just because one is homeless doesn't mean that they don't deserve respect. As a matter of fact, many of us are on couches. Many of us are staying with brothers and relatives. And thank God, because many of us are a paycheck away from homelessness. So that's one way to help. And the reason why I interrupted, I want you to continue, is because there's always something people can do to help. And some people want to help. But as Brother is saying, the way to do it from the heart of Skid Row talking right here is not just to run up and just do things. And so we got a brother here that's educating us on how to do that. And his Facebook page is General Jeff page, PAIGE. But go ahead, continue. No?
Well, yeah.
Go ahead, Brother General.
PAGE. It's just General Jeff. It's just General Jeff. Well, I appreciate the enthusiastic
I'm trying to get the people.
I'm just in Skid Row. I'm not
going to help because let me tell you, this brother, as you can see and hear the passion, but they're just not having it. The continued constant disrespect of it. So go ahead, Brother General.
So I just want to be clear. There's the big nonprofits. The missions, the social service providers, and all that. But then there's the grassroots. CBOs, community-based organizations. That's what they call in the industry. And so that's what, like the LA CAN, Los Angeles Community Action Network. There's My Friend's House LA. Tiffany Rose. She's does wonderful things. My organization is Issues and Solutions. We're just straight grassroots. We're not a nonprofit because we didn't want to become a nonprofit because then it looks like we just hating on the nonprofits because they get money and we ain't. So we don't even want to be. I'm just out there in the streets rolling my sleeves up. On Twitter, on Twitter it's at Go Skid Row Go. On Instagram it's at Skid Row General Jeff. On Facebook it's General Jeff. On email it's issuesandsolutions@yahoo.com. And my personal cell phone number is 323-445-0723, and it's on 24/7. I'm not scared. I'm not no punk. You can call me if you need help. Call me. If you with the funny style stuff, don't waste my time. Don't waste your time. And if you know people that need help, sure, I can refer them to services, but I don't like referring people to the nonprofit poverty pimps. So understand that if I'm hesitant about that, then you'll understand why if you got my number off of this show, this Liberated Sisters. But I definitely, before we go, I know before the show started, we mentioned something about hospital patient dumping. I got a lot.
Patient dumping. Oh my God. Yes.
Yes.
Brother General, can you do it in
absolutely
2 minutes?
Yeah,
go ahead. We're okay.
Oh, I thought you wanted to preview, set it off about what. Well, anyway, I was trying to, but anyway, so we don't have enough time. But yeah, hospital patient dumping is back in the news again.
Yeah.
On
the East Coast,
right.
Go ahead, brother.
It was a big deal here in 2006. Then there were big news stories in 2008, 2011, 2014, 2016. And again, like his sister just said, on the East Coast, it was a big, huge deal. In 2014, city attorney Mike Feuer, came out and said he's going to go after, these hospitals that are, patient dumping. And there were 4 big cases in the next 2 years that ended in 2016. They, a couple of $1 million that the city fined all these hospitals, whatever. And so now the story is hot again, but I want to tell you the real reason why. Those that know, we uncovered it. That's one thing about Liberated Sisters, and I'm a liberated brother down my Liberated Sisters, is we give you the real. And so what the real is, in November of 2016, the city taxpayers voted Measure HHH. That was $1.2 billion with the B. In June of last year, the LA County taxpayers voted for what we call Single H, Measure H, which was and they pass it off, make it sound like it's not that big a deal, big a number, $355 million over 10 years. That's actually $4 billion. That's what y'all really voted for. And so $4 billion for services. And so now when hospitals, they provide emergency room services. Now they're looking at $4 billion and they're like, this is a money scheme when we talk about the poverty pimp. And they're like, how can we get some of that $4 billion? So then they'll go to their media partners and they'll throw out this story out there about homeless patient dumping, and all of a sudden it becomes prominent in the news, and now the policymakers can say, hey, we need to address this problem, and we need to shift a whole bunch of significant funding towards these emergency rooms. And so they get the airwaves hot, and now they can justify it on paper. They play in politics.
Wow.
See, that's a money scheme. And so we've been doing this for 11 years. We know what it is. So while we care about the cause, and it's very unfortunate that they're using our people to generate funding for themselves, that's the poverty pimp of the game. And that's what we out here speaking out against. And, just like Dr. King, I don't know how much longer I'm going to live with you. And I ain't been to the mountaintop. I'm in the streets. I'm in the gutter, but I'm going to keep it 100 and tell it like it is and let y'all know, hey, if they coming for, I got bullseyes on my back, phones tapped, emails tapped. That's why I have a problem giving my number out. They tapping everything. And don't call me with the funny stuff. But the whole thing is, as long as we alive, we going to continue speaking the truth. We not going to hold back nothing. You know, it's just like it's another organization right here in Leimert Park, Africatown, the Africatown Coalition. Men and brothers and sisters on the front line, getting it done, doing what they do. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's, you know, we got a lot of energy out there, and it's time to, like, quit playing. Let's talk about it and put it out there. Let's stop being scared and shy about it. And as a first-generation West Coast hip-hop rapper, all you young whack rappers, you know, disrespecting the microphone, and you're not using that as an opportunity to spread some wisdom and really use it as a mouthpiece to spread information, man, y'all doing hip-hop. Our ancestors are rolling over the graves because of y'all.
All right. So now
that's another show.
Right. Brother General said early before we got on that he had a lot that was on his mind. And I feel that he could be going and we could be going for another hour or two. But we do have some things to do today. The clock on the wall is saying that's all. But I am so glad that you all were able to tune in today. Thank you, Brother General, because you gave a lot of information. And as much as we talk, it's, you know, it's fresh. It's like hearing it new all over again, and it recharges and re-energizes me to really work harder, because we just have on every level. There's something for everybody to do. We don't have to be hopelessness. Many people are. Many people are helping those who feel that way, but we have some things we can do. And again, just reach out. You can reach me at liberatedsisters@gmail.com. Hit me up on my Facebook page, Charlene Muhammad. You can also go to my Twitter page at Sister Charlene. Brother General gave you his information, and you can reach us again also through MorrisMediaLive.com. So thank you so much, Sister Felicia. I want to give a shout out to all of those working in the struggle. You know, a lot of times we point the finger, right? I'm the first one in there at frustration sometimes, and I say, well, why isn't so-and-so doing this? Or why don't they do that? But actually, why doesn't Sister Charlene Muhammad do what she can do to support or lend or whatever the lane is? And if we don't feel that we're ready yet, well, then shoot some donations over. Justice Warriors for Black Lives, Black Lives Matter. There are so many different people, issues and solutions. You know, if it's $1 or if it's $5, you know, the money comes together, and believe it or not, a cup of coffee for Brother General or whatever his tea or whatever he drinks may be something. I'm not advocating booze, but it may be something that will help get him where he's going for the next fight. You know, certainly I will not end off without saying that the Nation of Islam is in our annual Show of Love support drive for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. This man has been working and serving so hard, sacrificing, not just for Black people, but for all mankind, but certainly for our people. He's been working, and I mean, we just want to show him love. And so every year we give a love donation for Savior's Day. It's our Savior's Day gift drive. I put a link on my page. If you would go there, please, and if you would donate, pick an amount that's suitable for you. You can do it with one click in the quiet of your own private mind. So please go and support the Nation of Islam's drive. We know you love Minister Farrakhan, because when Minister Farrakhan comes to L.A., it's flooded. It is totally flooded. And so join us. He's been fighting a long time. 40 years without his teacher and father, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. 40 years without his teacher among us. He's been fighting and has been serving us very well. And so I invite you to do that. Join us. We love you, Minister Farrakhan. Sister Poetess, thank you so much for having us. I love being here. I'm going to tell you, tune in on Friday. Liberated Sisters airs on Radio Justice, LA, radiojustice.org, and on next Saturday at KPFK. And Brother General, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Finalcall.com for my current cover story on Black girl suicide. Finalcall.com. Subscribe to the digital edition as well. The Brothers on the Corner. Coming door to door with the bow tie, show them some love. I'm Sister Charlene Muhammad saying, if it's impacting our community or can uplift us as a people, let's talk about it. Peace.